There is a mirror in every kingdom. It stands not in the palace hall, but inside the mind of the one who rules. A mirror that does not reflect the crown, but the crowd. The king looks upon it and does not see his face. He sees the faces of those who laugh, those who praise, those who whisper that he is kind, honest, and pure. He begins to believe them. And that, Machiavelli would say, is the first fracture of power when a man begins to mistake reflection for reality. Power does not fall because of enemies. It falls because of illusions believed to be virtues. The sword cannot pierce a man whose mind is clear, but the praise of the crowd can soften steel faster than rust. Every empire that crumbled began not with invasion, but with self-deception, the ruler believing that goodness alone could guard the gates. The moment you start worshipping the image of virtue instead of the structure of truth, you have already lost the war within. The greatest enemy of power is not opposition, it is comfort. Comfort in moral illusions, comfort in being told you are good, comfort in believing that your sincerity protects you. But sincerity without awareness is blindness dressed in light. The dangerous thing about these lies is not that they sound evil, it is that they sound beautiful. They are whispered as commandments, taught as virtues, and applauded as moral victories. Yet they drain the will, dull the instinct, and silence the strategic mind. Machiavelli warned us centuries ago, the weak man is not destroyed by force, but by the lies that make him soft. The soft mind cannot command, the soft heart cannot lead. And when society tells you that softness is virtue, it is not teaching you goodness, it is teaching you submission. Power dies not from cruelty, but from confusion, when you can no longer tell whether you are acting from truth or from fear of disapproval. Look around. The world does not fall because of evil men alone. It falls because strong men forget that truth is not always gentle, that wisdom does not always smile, that leadership requires claws as much as compassion. A ruler without perception is a child with a sword, dangerous to himself, harmless to the wolves. And so the first lesson of real power is not to fight your enemies, but to see through your illusions. Because every illusion that flatters your ego will one day chain your will, and the most praised illusions are the most poisonous. They promise peace, but deliver paralysis. They promise virtue, but breed vulnerability. They promise safety, but leave you exposed to those who see through you. Here, in the age of soft truths and loud virtues, you must learn to see as Machiavelli saw with cold eyes and a burning mind, to question every good that weakens your hand, every virtue that silences your instinct, to ask not, is this praised, but does this preserve my power? And so tonight, as the mirror shatters and the faces of the crowd fade, you will see what remains yourself, stripped of illusion, face to face with what you truly are, a mind capable of seeing, a will capable of deciding, a spirit capable of ruling. These, then, are the four dangerous lies, the lies praised as virtues, celebrated as moral truths, but engineered to make you tame, the four illusions that quietly destroy your power before you even notice the theft. Now, let us begin with the first, the most seductive of them all, the lie that tells you to be honest about everything. They told you honesty is the highest virtue. They told you that truth will always protect you, that transparency makes you trustworthy, that the world rewards those who reveal themselves completely. But Machiavelli knew better. He watched kings fall because they spoke too soon, generals lose wars because they trusted too freely, and men of brilliance end up powerless because they could not master their own tongues. The world does not reward the one who exposes himself, it rewards the one who conceals his strategy until the moment of strike. The blindly honest are the easiest prey. They mistake confession for courage and openness for integrity. But what is integrity to a serpent hiding in the grass? What is sincerity to a hunter waiting for you to reveal your path? The man who reveals everything about himself becomes predictable, and the predictable man can be controlled. The one who speaks every truth is not noble, he is naked in a storm, waiting for lightning to find him. Honesty, in its purest form, is not morality, it is exposure. The world does not hand you medals for openness, it hands you chains. The same truth that liberates the spirit can also enslave the strategist, because not every truth deserves to be spoken, not every thought deserves to be shared, and not every emotion deserves a witness. A wise man keeps his inner kingdom guarded, not out of fear, but out of understanding that revelation is a weapon once drawn, it cannot be sheathed again. Machiavelli said, "A prince must learn how not to be good when necessity requires it." He did not mean to become cruel, he meant to become precise. Power demands discretion, and discretion is the art of knowing when silence speaks louder than words. You must learn to hide your motives behind a smile, to conceal your plans within patience, to let your enemies guess your next move while you already stand 3 steps ahead. A lion that reveals every roar will be silenced by hunters. The forest does not fear the loud beast, it fears the quiet one, the one whose silence hides the promise of power, the one who only roars when the outcome is certain. So too with truth. It must not be a confession, it must be a weapon, a blade of clarity, not a bleeding heart, because the man who bleeds truth at every moment will one day find his blood used as ink to write his own defeat. Truth, when spoken with precision, is power. Truth, when spoken without awareness, is suicide. Learn the difference. In a world that worships exposure, the wise remain mysterious. The powerful reveal just enough to appear human and conceal enough to remain untouchable. Power is not in being known, it is in being understood by few and feared by many. The truth you reveal defines the control you lose. Guard it well. Speak when you must, and when you do, make every word a strike, not a surrender. Because truth is not a confession, it is a weapon. Use it with precision, or it will be used against you. And once you understand this, once you see that honesty without judgment is self-betrayal, you begin to see the pattern. You begin to see how the world praises your exposure to disarm your defense. You begin to see that what they call virtue is often a demand for obedience. And this leads us to the second illusion, the lie that wears a smile, the one that tells you to be kind, because kindness will earn you respect. But in the game of power, kindness without boundaries is not respect, it is surrender. They taught you to be kind, didn't they? They told you that kindness is the key to being loved, to being respected, to being accepted by others. Be kind, they said, and people will treat you the same. But Machiavelli watched the world too closely to believe such a fairy tale. He saw that men do not love you for your goodness, they love you for your usefulness. And when your kindness no longer serves their needs, they discard you like a worn-out garment. Kindness, when placed in the wrong hands, becomes a leash. It is the tool by which manipulators pull your spirit toward their desires. When you are too kind, they test your limits. When you forgive too easily, they repeat the offense. When you give without question, they take without guilt. And soon, your kindness becomes a curse, an invisible contract that you never signed, demanding your compliance while rewarding you with nothing but exhaustion. Machiavelli warned, men love at their convenience, but fear constantly. He meant that affection is fleeting, but fear endures. The respect earned through kindness fades the moment your kindness no longer benefits others. But the respect born of boundaries, of strength, of silent control, that kind of respect stays, because it is carved into the mind by instinct, not sentiment. Society has told you that fear is evil, that strength is arrogance, that power is cruelty. Yet the truth is simpler. Kindness without power is not goodness. It is weakness disguised as virtue. A sheep that smiles at the wolf is not moral. It is next. Look around you. How many times have you been told, just be kind, when what they really meant was, don't fight back? How many times has your politeness been interpreted as permission? How many times has your patience been taken as surrender? Kindness in a cruel world does not guarantee harmony. It guarantees hierarchy, and you are not at the top of it. Respect is not given to the one who bends, it is given to the one who stands firm. The crowd does not admire the servant for his servitude, it admires the master for his authority. And when you choose to lead, when you choose to act with power, The same people who once called you too kind will now call you too cold. That's how you know you've begun to rise. Because power changes the names that people give to your virtues. Kindness is not to be destroyed, but it must be disciplined. It must be guarded behind walls of discernment, directed like an arrow, not spilled like water. Be kind, yes, but to those who deserve it. Be generous, but not gullible. Forgive, but never forget. For a king who forgives the assassin without consequence teaches the kingdom that betrayal has no price. Kindness must be earned, not distributed. And when it flows from strength, it becomes divine. For only the strong can afford to be merciful. The weak confuse mercy with surrender. The strong use mercy as strategy. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He wrote that a ruler must be both lion and fox, the lion to inspire fear, the fox to detect traps. Kindness belongs to neither. It is a choice reserved for moments of power. When you act with kindness while you are weak, you gamble your survival on the mercy of others. But when you act with kindness while you are strong, your mercy becomes sacred because it is rare. The world is drawn not to kindness, but to certainty. People follow the man who knows what he wants, who speaks with authority, who commands the space he walks in. They will claim they admire his confidence, but what they really mean is that they fear losing his approval. That is the quiet truth of leadership. Respect is rooted not in love, but in the controlled possibility of loss. And so, you must learn the art of measured kindness, the balance between grace and gravity, when to speak softly and when to remind them you can roar, when to help and when to let them learn the cost of their own mistakes. For no one respects a savior they can summon at will. The most dangerous form of manipulation in this world is emotional debt, the illusion that your goodness obligates you to others. You are not required to bleed to prove your heart. You are not required to be available to everyone who calls. You are not required to sacrifice your peace for their comfort. That is not kindness, it is self-erasure. True kindness begins when you stop allowing others to exploit it. It is strength under control, not surrender under disguise. A sword in a velvet sheath, beautiful but capable. Those who confuse your compassion for weakness will meet the blade, and those who value your strength will earn your mercy. That is how real power behaves. Decisive, selective, merciful by choice, not by habit. To understand this balance is to step into true respect, because respect is born from two sources, fear and admiration, and both can coexist. To be respected for your kindness alone is fragile, but to be respected for your strength and kindness together, that is unbreakable. A king who is only feared lives in isolation. A king who is only loved lives in illusion. But a king who is both feared and loved commands the world, because people trust his fairness, yet tremble at his limits. That is how justice breathes through the lungs of strength, not sentiment. So let this truth pierce you. Kindness without boundaries is cruelty to yourself. To give endlessly is to train others to take endlessly. You teach people how to treat you not by your words, but by what you allow. Boundaries are not walls. They are definitions of self-respect. And when you learn this, when you learn that true respect is not begged for, but commanded, you will stop apologizing for your power. You will stop dimming your fire to make others comfortable in their shadows. You will stop saying, "I'm sorry," for walking the path that others were too timid to follow. For the moment you stop being endlessly kind, they will call you arrogant. Let them. The same mouths that called you kind yesterday will call you selfish tomorrow, the moment you stop serving their comfort. That's not your problem, it's their revelation. Machiavelli warned of this. Men are ungrateful, fickle, deceitful, and cowardly. They follow when convenient, betray when opportunity arises, and blame the generous for their own hunger. The ruler who understands this never despairs, he adjusts. He knows that virtue must serve vision, not the other way around. Be feared, then merciful, not the reverse. Because mercy without power is ignored, but mercy after power is remembered. The lion's kindness carries weight because it comes from strength. The sheep's kindness means nothing because it comes from fear. Choose which you will be. When you understand this, you no longer confuse silence for weakness or kindness for surrender. You see that respect is not born in the giving, but in the guarding. That your time, your energy, your love, these are currencies of power. Spend them with strategy, not guilt. And when you master this balance, when you can hold kindness in one hand and authority in the other, you will no longer fear being misunderstood, because power is often mistaken for arrogance by those who have none. Let them misinterpret. The strong do not argue with the weak about what strength means. Now look deeper, because another illusion hides beneath this one. If kindness makes you exploitable, then humility, when distorted, makes you invisible, and invisibility is death to power. The next lie whispers softly, almost holy in tone, the kind of lie that sounds righteous. Stay humble, and you'll be rewarded. But Machiavelli saw the truth. Humility, when forced, is a disguise that hides your light from those who need to see it. So the question is not whether you should be humble, but when and to whom. Because in the world of power, humility can either elevate you to mastery or erase you completely. Let us step into that shadow and expose the third illusion, the quietest, most elegant poison of all, the lie of excessive humility. They tell you that humility is the crown of virtue, that to lower yourself is to be exalted, that modesty will make you beloved and reward will follow. And yet, Machiavelli stood in the courts of kings and saw the humblest faces trampled first. He saw that the world does not reward silence, it forgets it. It does not cherish those who bow, it uses them as stepping stones for those who stand tall. The idea sounds noble, almost sacred. Stay humble. It rings in the ear like a hymn, a command wrapped in light. But you must listen carefully, for behind that sweetness lies control. When they tell you to stay humble, they are not always telling you to stay grounded, they are telling you to stay small. They are telling you to remember your place, to never rise beyond what makes others comfortable. They want your humility to serve their hierarchy. Humility, when chosen, is wisdom. Humility, when demanded, is enslavement. There is a vast difference between kneeling before God and kneeling before men who wish to keep you beneath them. One honors truth, the other feeds illusion. Machiavelli saw this play out again and again. The meek believed they would inherit the earth, but they did not inherit kingdoms, they inherited burdens. The rulers, the conquerors, the thinkers who shaped history, they all knew that the world does not reward quiet virtue, it rewards visible strength. A hidden light cannot guide a nation. A whisper cannot command loyalty. They tell you, do not show off, do not shine too bright, stay humble. But have you ever asked why? Why is your confidence so threatening? Why does your excellence disturb them? Because your presence exposes their mediocrity, because your fire reveals their coldness, because your vision makes their blindness unbearable. The crowd preaches humility to the individual because they fear the one who knows his worth. When a man recognizes his value, he cannot be manipulated. When he knows his strength, he cannot be shamed. And when he stands in his full light, he becomes uncontrollable. That is why society praises humility so loudly. It is not a moral code, it is a method of control. True humility is not about dimming your light. It is about knowing that the light is not yours alone. It is the reflection of something higher, something divine, something that flows through you. You do not hide it to appear righteous. You shine it to fulfill purpose. The candle that hides its flame in fear of shining burns itself to death in darkness. In Machiavelli's world, humility had its place, but always beneath strategy. He advised rulers to appear humble when it served their purpose, but never to become so. It is not necessary to have all the virtues, he wrote, but to appear to have them. To appear humble disarms your rivals. To be humble in truth makes you vulnerable. There is an art to the appearance of modesty. The powerful know how to lower their head at the right moment, to speak softly when surrounded by noise, to play the fool while studying every move around them. Their humility is a weapon, a mask, a mirror that hides a calculating mind. They know that humility displayed strategically earns trust, while humility lived unconsciously erases power. You see, in the hierarchy of this world, perception creates reality. Those who project power shape the narrative. Those who hide their strength are written out of it. The lion that disguises itself as prey will not survive long enough to teach the virtue of patience. The king who bows too long forgets how to stand. The danger of excessive humility is not moral, it is existential. You begin to mistake silence for peace, smallness for safety, invisibility for virtue, but you cannot serve your purpose if you shrink from it. The gift placed inside you was never meant to be buried under false modesty. There is a kind of humility that honors the Creator, and there is another that offends him. The humility that says, "I am nothing, I am unworthy, I should not speak, I should not lead," is not humility, it is fear wearing a halo. And fear is the most cunning preacher the devil ever trained. If you wish to serve others, do not hide, stand, speak, shine. Because every time you silence your brilliance to avoid offending someone weaker, you reinforce their illusion that greatness should apologize for existing. You become complicit in the mediocrity that devours potential. Machiavelli understood the power of image. He wrote that a ruler must always cultivate the appearance of greatness, not arrogance, but command. Because perception governs loyalty. The people must believe in your strength, even before they see it in action. A leader who refuses to project power loses not because he lacks it, but because no one believes he possesses it. So, ask yourself, what good is your humility if it hides your capability? What good is your modesty if it buries your mission? The world cannot reward what it cannot see. Do not confuse humility with self-erasure. A humble man acknowledges his limitations but still pursues mastery. He accepts his imperfection but still claims his authority. He bows before God but stands before men. That is the balance. That is divine order. When you learn to be humble in private but radiant in public, you align heaven and earth within you, because humility before the divine purifies your intention, but confidence before men fulfills your calling. You must be small before eternity to be great within time. That is not contradiction, that is harmony. But the world has distorted this wisdom. It praises false humility, the kind that demands you to speak softly even when you know the truth, to minimize your worth, to avoid envy, to suppress your power to make others comfortable. This humility is poison wrapped in praise. They will applaud you for your modesty right up until the moment they forget you ever existed. Let that be your warning. Those who hide their talent in the name of humility die twice, once in silence and once in history. Do not be afraid to command the room. Do not apologize for your voice. Do not explain your ambition as if it were sin. Humility does not mean you deny your fire. It means you understand that the fire was given to you for a reason, and you intend to use it. Machiavelli would have called it prudence, the ability to appear virtuous without being bound by it, to walk among the crowd, modest and composed, while inside burns a mind that calculates kingdoms. That is not pride, it is mastery. The humble man without ambition serves. The humble man with ambition leads. The difference lies not in behavior, but in awareness. You must know when humility serves wisdom and when it serves weakness. If you lower your head before those who feed on your insecurity, you are not being humble, you are being harvested. If you silence your greatness so others can feel taller, you are not virtuous, you are vanishing. Do not let the praise of humility become the prison of potential. The meek may inherit the earth, but they will not rule it. And there is a difference between owning dust and commanding destiny. There comes a time when humility must give way to declaration, when silence must become thunder, when the world must see the crown that humility once concealed. Because the purpose of growth is not to hide the tree, it is to bear fruit. You owe it not to your ego, but to your purpose, to show the strength within you. Because the light you suppress does not only betray you, it denies others the guidance they need. So learn this paradox. Humility before creation, authority before creatures. Bow to God, not to gossip. Let your actions speak louder than your apologies. And let your presence remind others that humility and confidence are not enemies, they are brothers in service of purpose. The world rewards visibility, not invisibility. Even Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, not the bashful. The winds of opportunity do not blow toward those who hide in the corner waiting to be discovered. They blow toward those who raise their sails and dare to meet the storm. So raise your head. Walk as one who knows his worth, not as one begging to prove it. When you carry humility with quiet confidence, the world will feel your gravity. People will not call you humble, they will call you inevitable. Remember, humility should be a strategy, not a sentence. Use it to listen when others boast. Use it to observe when others reveal. Use it to learn when others pretend to know. But when the time comes to act, stand as one who no longer needs permission. There is no virtue in shrinking when you were made to lead. There is no holiness in silence when your voice can lift others. The false saint hides his power to be praised for purity. The true servant uses his power to fulfill destiny. And that is the essence of Machiavellian realism. It separates the illusion of goodness from the function of greatness. It asks not, how do I appear virtuous, but what sustains my power to serve a higher purpose? Be humble in private, but in public radiate command. Because the crowd does not follow invisible leaders, nor do they trust voices that whisper. Show them the calm fire, the steady hand, the confidence that does not shout but does not hide. And when you do, when you step into the fullness of your presence, you will find that true humility was never about denial, it was about stewardship. You are not claiming glory that belongs to God. You are carrying it through your being. So the next time the world tells you, stay humble, listen carefully to what they mean. If they are telling you to stay grateful, to stay teachable, to stay grounded, accept it. But if they are telling you to stay small, to stay silent, to stay beneath them, reject it. That is not humility. That is manipulation dressed as morality. The candle was not made to hide its flame. The flame was not made to fear the night. And you were not made to bow to illusions that demand your silence. The true leader knows when to kneel before God and when to rise before men. That balance is power. That awareness is mastery. And when you embody it, you no longer chase reward. Reward chases you. But the next illusion is even subtler, even more dangerous, because it does not appeal to your virtue or your image. It appeals to your morality. It whispers that intentions are enough, that as long as your heart is pure, your results will follow, that good intentions create good outcomes. But Machiavelli, the realist, knew the truth. Intentions mean nothing if they fail to shape the world. The road to ruin is paved not with malice, but with misplaced faith in the goodness of one's motives. And so, to complete this awakening, we must now expose the fourth and final lie, the sweetest poison of all, the belief that your good intentions guarantee your success. This is the final illusion, the most delicate, the most devastating. It does not destroy you through weakness or fear. It destroys you through self-deception. It tells you that goodness alone is enough, that if your heart is pure, the world will bend toward you in return, that if you mean well, things will fall into place. But Machiavelli looked at history, and what he saw was not comfort, it was carnage. He saw good men ruined by their own virtue. He saw noble hearts crushed beneath the machinery of reality. He saw kingdoms fall not because they were wicked, but because they were naive. He wrote, "The road to ruin is paved with good intentions." Not because intention is evil, but because intention without awareness is impotence. The world does not care what you meant to do. It reacts only to what you did. Power is not judged by purity of heart, but by precision of action. You can mean well and still destroy what you love. You can have a heart full of mercy and still build a kingdom of weakness. You can believe you are righteous, while everything around you collapses, because intention without intelligence is a child playing with fire. A surgeon may intend to heal, but if his hand trembles, he kills. A ruler may intend peace, but if he fears war, he invites invasion. A father may intend to protect, but if he shields his child from every hardship, he raises an adult incapable of survival. In every case, the same pattern repeats: good intention, disastrous result. Machiavelli's realism is not cruelty, it is clarity. He understood that the universe does not reward moral sincerity. It rewards competence, strength, and results. He saw that men cling to their intentions to avoid responsibility for failure. They say, "But I meant well," as if that absolves them from the consequences of their inaction. It does not. The world is not a courtroom of conscience. It is an arena of outcomes. That is why the weak comfort themselves with intention they cannot bear to face reality. They say, "At least I tried," while the powerful say, "I finished." They say, "At least I cared," while the powerful say, "I conquered." The language of the powerless is filled with justification. The language of the powerful is filled with results. Good intentions are not a map, they are a mirage. They promise a destination, but they vanish when you get close. They soothe the ego, but they starve the mission. They let you sleep at night, but they do not change the morning. Look at history. How many revolutions began with idealists crying for equality, only to birth tyrants thirsting for control? How many preachers meant to liberate souls but ended up building cages of doctrine? How many lovers promised forever, only to wound each other with blind devotion? The heart may burn with sincerity, but the flame of ignorance still consumes. Machiavelli's wisdom is uncomfortable because it exposes this hypocrisy. He wrote, "The end justifies the means when the end is survival. This was not permission for evil, it was instruction for responsibility." He meant that if your goal is truly worthy, if your cause sustains life, order, or vision, then you must have the courage to do what is necessary to secure it. Because the opposite of evil is not good intention. The opposite of evil is effective action. Think of the surgeon again. He does not weep over the wound. He cuts deeper to save the body. Think of the general. He does not wish for peace. He prepares for war so that peace can endure. Think of the leader. He does not please everyone. He makes decisions that ensure stability, even if it earns him hatred. Weakness hides behind good intentions. Strength hides within decisive action. You cannot wish your way into transformation. You cannot love your way into order. You cannot pray your way into change without the discipline to act upon that prayer. Every intention must be incarnated through effort, and every effort must be guided by wisdom. This is why the world is filled with broken dreamers, because they confused emotion for execution. They mistook wanting for working. They mistook sincerity for skill. They mistook the warmth of their heart for the weight of their hand. Intention is the spark, but without structure, it burns nothing. It flares for a moment and fades into smoke. The architect who dreams of building but never measures the stone dies with blueprints in his mind. The warrior who dreams of justice but never draws his blade dies in the dust of his own mercy. The ruler who dreams of virtue but refuses to make the hard choice loses both his virtue and his throne. Power demands that you act not only from what you feel, but from what is necessary. That is the essence of realism, not cynicism, but maturity. To accept that sometimes mercy kills, while severity saves. To understand that intention must bow to outcome, or it will be devoured by it. And yet, this truth terrifies people, because to accept it means to surrender the illusion of moral control. It means admitting that your goodness does not make you invincible, that your kindness does not guarantee justice, that your purity does not protect you from corruption. It means standing naked before the reality that life is not fair and deciding to act powerfully anyway. Good intentions create attachment to a story of self-righteousness. You begin to believe that your good heart makes you different from others, that your virtue exempts you from consequence. But life has no special rule for the well-meaning. Gravity pulls on saints and sinners alike. The storm drowns the devout and the wicked together. Nature does not care if you are innocent. It only cares if you are prepared. Machiavelli taught his students to accept this neutrality of the world, to see that survival depends not on moral comfort, but on strategic awareness. He said, "A wise prince must build on what is, not on what ought to be." That single line is one of the sharpest blades in philosophy, because what ought to be is the language of dreamers. What is the language of rulers. The dreamer says, "People should be honest." The realist says, people lie. The dreamer says, if I love them, they'll love me back. The realist says, love without respect decays. The dreamer says, if I'm good, life will be fair. The realist says, life is not fair, so I will become strong. The Machiavellian mind does not reject morality, it transcends its illusions. It understands that moral language is often used by the powerful to control the weak. Be good, they say. Be kind, they say. Be honest, they say. But behind those words lies a mechanism of compliance, and the one who obeys without questioning the consequence becomes a tool in another man's design. So the real test of power is not whether your heart is pure, it's whether your heart is disciplined, whether you can act from clarity instead of comfort, whether you can see beyond the illusion of moral safety and walk through the fire of decision. Ask yourself, how many of your greatest regrets came from bad intentions? Very few. Most regrets come from good intentions when you stayed quiet instead of speaking, forgave instead of confronting, waited instead of moving, believed instead of verifying. You meant well, but the result was loss. That is the price of blindness, the tragedy of those who refuse to see that power and morality are not the same realm. Power belongs to the world of cause and effect. Morality belongs to the world of motive and emotion. To live wisely, you must bridge the two, feel deeply, but act intelligently. Even the scriptures, when read through the eyes of wisdom, do not reward naive goodness. They reward disciplined faith. Noah did not save his family by wishing for safety. He built an ark. David did not defeat Goliath by praying for peace. He threw a stone. Christ himself said, "Be wise as serpents and harmless as doves." That is not a contradiction. It is a command to master both dimensions, purity of purpose and precision of execution. Good intentions are divine seeds, but if you plant them in ignorance, they bear rotten fruit. It is not enough to mean well, you must see clearly. Machiavelli's realism demands that we stop flattering ourselves, that we stop excusing our failures as fate or bad luck, that we face the brutal truth. We are responsible for what happens after we act, not just for how we feel when we act. To act from love without intelligence is to feed the beast you wish to tame. To act from hope without structure is to build castles in fog. You must learn to measure the consequence of every movement, to ask not, "Do I feel good doing this?" but, "Will this lead to strength or to weakness?" That single question will save you from the disasters of blind goodness. Because power is not cruelty, it is consciousness. The ruler who acts from awareness may still fail, but he fails nobly, knowing he played the full game. The one who acts only from intention fails pathetically, comforted by illusions. He dies, convinced he was too good for this world, and perhaps he was, but the world remains, indifferent to his goodness. There is a brutal mercy in realism. It frees you from delusion. When you stop expecting your virtue to protect you, you begin to develop the skills that actually will. When you stop worshiping your intentions, you begin to refine your execution. And when you stop needing the world to validate your morality, you begin to live with strategic grace. A surgeon who fears blood kills the patient with mercy. That is Machiavelli's wisdom in metaphor. A ruler who hesitates to make hard decisions destroys what he was meant to preserve. The mother who cannot say no raises a child who cannot hear no. The teacher who spares correction teaches failure. In each case, the intention is noble, but the outcome is ruin. So you must learn to do what is required, not just what feels good. You must have the courage to appear cruel for the sake of true compassion, because compassion without discipline is chaos. Real strength is not heartlessness, it is heart-mastered. It is the ability to act with love, but also with clarity. To see that sometimes the kindest act is the harshest one. To see that mercy must sometimes cut in order to heal. Machiavelli believed that morality must serve survival, not sabotage it. He did not dismiss virtue, he organized it. He placed every moral impulse under the command of strategy. The result was not cynicism, it was effectiveness. And that is the final truth of power. The world does not reward those who feel deeply, It rewards those who act decisively. It does not care about your heart, it responds to your hand. The universe is not moral or immoral, it is mathematical. It calculates outcomes, not intentions. The weak find comfort in saying, "But my heart was pure." The strong find purpose in saying, "My results were clear." And when you live long enough in the arena of reality, you come to see that those who worship their goodness become servants to those who understand the game. So, ask yourself one last time, will you continue to believe that your purity will save you? Or will you wake up to the truth that power belongs to those who can act with clarity, who can balance intention with execution, who can walk the thin line between mercy and mastery? Because in the end, Machiavelli's warning was never against morality. It was against illusion. He did not tell us to abandon goodness. He told us to stop being deceived by it. Good intentions comfort the weak. Results define the powerful. And when that truth finally settles into your bones, when you realize that the world does not bend for your kindness but for your competence, a strange peace begins to bloom within you. The peace of awareness, the peace of maturity, the peace that comes from no longer needing to be good in order to be effective because now you understand how to be both. And so, as we reach the end of these 4 illusions, the honesty that exposes you, the kindness that weakens you, the humility that erases you, and the good intentions that blind you, one truth stands unshaken. Power begins where lies end. When you strip away the illusions praised by society, when you break the masks of false virtue, when you see clearly without flattery or fear, you return to your rightful state, the state of clarity, the state of command. They told you to be honest, kind, humble, and good, not to make you powerful, but to make you predictable. But you were never born to be predictable. You were born to be precise. Now, imagine this final image. A man standing before the mirror. The glass that once showed him the faces of the crowd begins to crack, piece by piece. The reflection fractures. 4 masks fall to the ground. Honesty, kindness, humility, good intentions. Each shatters like porcelain. And for the first time, he sees himself not as the world told him he should be, but as he truly is. Slowly, he steps out of the mirror. The light behind him flickers. The air grows still. And in that silence, a new kind of authority is born. Not arrogance, not cruelty, but clarity. Because power does not live in goodness or evil. It lives in awareness. It lives in the capacity to see what others refuse to see. And Machiavelli's voice echoes, steady, timeless, merciless. The greatest act of rebellion is to stop believing what makes you weak. Power has never been destroyed by enemies. It has always been undone by illusions. This was Machiavelli's timeless warning that the downfall of kings, the collapse of empires, and the decay of once strong souls do not begin with outside attacks, but with inner deception. The greatest enemy of strength is not opposition, but the lies you believe about what makes you good. Society praises these lies as virtues: honesty, kindness, humility, and good intentions. But beneath their beauty lies a hidden design to make you tame, predictable, and harmless. The first lie, be honest about everything, teaches you to expose your truth to a world that profits from your transparency. It convinces you that sincerity is strength when, in truth, it is surrender. Blind honesty makes you readable, controllable, and easily broken. Machiavelli warned that a ruler must learn how not to be good when necessity requires it. Power demands discretion, the wisdom to know when silence protects and when speech empowers. Truth is not a confession, it is a weapon. Use it with precision, or it will be used against you. The second lie, be kind and everyone will respect you, turns virtue into a leash. Kindness without strength does not invite love. It invites exploitation. People test what they do not fear. They will take your patience as weakness and your generosity as permission. Kindness is valuable only when it flows from power, when you can strike, but choose mercy. Fear sustains respect. Love sustains convenience. Machiavelli knew this balance. Men love at their convenience, but fear constantly. Be feared, then merciful, not the reverse. For mercy before power is submission, but mercy after power is sovereignty. The third lie, stay humble and you'll be rewarded, sounds holy but serves control. False humility teaches you to hide your light so others won't feel threatened. It makes you invisible and then tells you to call that invisibility virtue. But the world does not reward what it cannot see. The candle that hides its flame burns itself to death in darkness. True humility is chosen, not imposed. It bows before God, not before men. It listens without losing authority, serves without surrendering self-respect. Be humble in private, but radiant in public, for the world rewards visibility, not self-erasure. The fourth lie, good intentions create good outcomes, is the most seductive because it disguises failure as virtue. It whispers that meaning well is enough, that a pure heart ensures a pure result. But the world does not honor purity, it honors precision. Intentions do not build empires, competence does. A surgeon who fears blood kills the patient with mercy. A ruler who hesitates to act destroys what he hopes to protect. Machiavelli's realism cuts through this illusion. Good intentions comfort the weak, but only effective action defines the powerful. The universe does not measure motives, it measures results. These four illusions form the cage of the modern mind. They teach you to value acceptance over awareness, comfort over clarity, and image over influence. They tell you that goodness alone can guard the gates, and by believing them, you become your own captor. But once you see them for what they are, once you realize that virtue can be a disguise for obedience, you awaken to a different kind of morality, not moral blindness, but moral mastery. Machiavelli never told us to abandon virtue. He told us to govern it, to use goodness as strategy, not as surrender. Power, in its highest form, is not cruelty, it is consciousness. It is the fusion of heart and discipline, compassion and control, mercy and mind. The strong man is not one who rejects virtue, but one who commands it, who decides when to be gentle, when to be silent, when to kneel, and when to strike. And when you see this clearly, when the masks of false virtue fall away, honesty, kindness, humility, good intentions, what remains is clarity. Clarity is not coldness, it is the end of self-deception. It is the courage to act without needing to appear perfect, to speak truth without begging approval, to lead without guilt. It is the understanding that morality without intelligence is suicide, and intelligence without morality is tyranny. The balance of both is power. They told you to be honest, kind, humble, and good, not to make you powerful, but to make you predictable. Predictability is the death of sovereignty. The unpredictable mind, the one who can discern, adapt, and decide, cannot be controlled. When you rise beyond these illusions, you do not become ruthless, you become real. Power does not live in goodness or evil. It lives in clarity, the capacity to see the truth behind every disguise, to act from vision rather than validation. This is Machiavelli's ultimate revelation. The greatest act of rebellion is not to defy authority, but to stop believing what makes you weak. So, remember this creed of realism. Speak truth as strategy, not confession. Show kindness as strength, not compliance. Wear humility as armor, not as a chain. Turn good intentions into effective action, for power begins where lies end, and when the illusions fall silent, you will no longer see the faces of the crowd in the mirror, only your own, unmasked, unafraid, awake.